Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the latest edition of the Hudson County Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Haig, and with me today is a very, very special guest who helped to put Marist High School back on the map in the 1990s, and they won, at that time, an unprecedented 6 county championships in a row, and also went all the way to the Tournament of Champions finals in 1992, I think. Two. Okay, is my good friend Mike Leonardo, and I'm very glad to have Mike with us today. Mike, how you doing today?
Good, Jim. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you. You're one of my all-time favorite people in the world. So I'm glad we have you. So anyway, all right, let's turn the clock back a little bit to where you were born and raised, and you were born and raised in Bayonne.
I was.
Okay. And what was it? What part of Bayonne did you live in?
I lived in Midtown. I grew up on 35th Street, Bayonne, and later on in life, Sheila and I moved uptown before heading out to New Providence.
Okay, but you lived at 35th Street. So where'd you go to grammar school?
I went to the Horace. I was part of the Horace Mann Tigers.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what was that school like back when you were growing up? Was it a competitive school? Was it a good athletic school? What was that like?
It was a good academic school. I would call us not too competitive athletically. It was the old days where you were excited that you got a pair of shorts on a shirt on the team, but no shorts, so you went scrambling around town to find the matching shorts.
Okay. And did you play all sports as a kid growing up?
I did. I loved all sports.
Okay.
Obviously, basketball was big for me, but in town they had a Pop Warner football league, and I actually played for the Kavanaugh Crusaders when I was a kid.
Kavanaugh Crusaders. Okay.
Yeah.
And was that a rec league football team?
It was a Pop Warner league.
Oh, okay. And how old were you when you were playing then? Like 10, 11, 12?
12,
Yeah.
13. Yeah.
Okay. And did you play baseball at all too?
No, I didn't. But
No.
I fooled around playing in the schoolyards, that kind of stuff in the old days. But like I said, I like all sports, and still to this day, I'm a big Mets fan.
Oh, bravo! See, now I knew there was a reason why I wanted to have you on the show. Mets fans got to stick together. There's too many Yankee fans around here. So.
I even watch hockey. I like Ranger hockey.
Same here. See? Wow, we got a lot in common. So, okay. All right. So, was there a choice at all that you had to go to high school, or was it always going to be Marist?
No, it was Marist or Bayonne. I remember talking to coaches from both schools back then, and wound up going to Marist, which was a good choice for me. At the time, though, Marist had 900 plus boys. It was, when I coached at Marist, for example, between boys and girls, we topped out at about 400 kids.
Okay. All right. So, and then there were boys and girls too. It was, but when you went there was just 900 boys.
Yes.
So, right. All right. But there was no choice in the matter. You definitely were going to go to Marist.
Yeah, I had gone to a couple Marist basketball games when I was in 8th grade, and they were packed. It was Marist and Bayonne, big rivalry, and I wound up playing with some of those guys, and just was really impressed by the whole venue. When you're a kid, Marist is a big place. It's a big gym. Probably one of the better gyms in the state back then, and it was.
When we were kids, Marist was like the Taj Mahal. That was like, we were so used to like the small, tiny little gyms. And then when you walk into Marist, it was like, wow, you walk around and you look at it like it was like it was the Taj Mahal, like you were going into Madison Square Garden, for God's sakes. That's how great of a gym that was. But
yeah, it's funny. I wound up watching a pair of young guards at Marist at the time. It was Buddy O'Donnell.
Sure.
Jimmy Ostazuski, who was the coach at Marist before I came around.
Before he started to own restaurants. Yeah.
Yeah. I get a lot of meals with my team down at the Menace. But Buddy O'Donnell was one of my favorite players, even when I was in the program, which would be like the next year. So I got to play. I started as a junior, and I got to play that year with Buddy when he was a senior. And my biggest memory of Buddy, besides him being very tough and very good, was we were playing at Lincoln, and the winner would win the county championship. And Buddy was defending one of their guards. I don't remember his name, but after he scored,
it was probably Ricky Reeves, or maybe it was Tony Epps. Do you remember Tony Epps or Ricky Sumter? One of those three. They were the great players. Charlie Brown was the coach. Yeah.
After he scored and the gym at Lincoln was packed, he spit at Buddy, and Buddy was not the type of guy who would take that. And
Too well. No. Buddy would turn around and want to whack the guy for doing what he did. Yeah.
Right. So at the time, Buddy took the ball out of bounds, threw it 100 miles an hour, and hit the kid right in the head. And I looked at, my first thought on the court was, where's John Olson? I think I'll hide behind him, because now every kid, they came flying out of the stands, and we were probably 15 guys, including coaches, against the entire Lincoln gym, and it took us a long time to get out of there. And I remember somebody punching Buddy and being laying on the floor. And the most impressive thing I saw was little Freddie Calabrese, our coach.
Yep.
He jumped on Buddy once Buddy laid on the ground, and he took most of the kicks and punches himself as he kind of covered Buddy up. And about an hour later, the gym was cleared, and there were dogs and cops, and we got escorted to our bus. And that's my biggest memory of Buddy.
And Freddie knew where his bread was buttered at that time. He knew he was go protect the best player. You know, like go lay on top of Buddy O'Donnell and make sure he's taken care of it, right?
What Freddie did was similar to what Van Gundy did as he held on to Morning's leg.
Yeah. And there was a totally different thing. Buddy was protecting his own player. Van Gundy was going after the Miami Heat player, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And yes, if you did anything at all in the Lincoln gym back in those days, wow, you know, like that's why you know in those days when we were in high school, that's why those games were played in the afternoon, because you would not be able to play a game at Lincoln at night, because the reason why is because the guys who lived in that neighborhood, the vagrants, used to get all liquored up and then need a place to go hang out. So they'd go hang out inside the gym to keep warm. And they were the ones that caused the most ruckus. So that was like, they needed a place to go. So this way they figured, well, if the games are being played at 4:30 in the afternoon, you're giving them less chance of a chance to get all liquored up. So, you know, let's play the games in the afternoon. So that's how the games at Lincoln and Ferris got played in the afternoon and not at night, you know.
Yeah, I remember looking at Buddy as he hit the kid with the ball. I said, I had a look on me like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. You know, like, come on. Did you have to do that? You know?
All right, so is it that right around that time that your love of basketball began? I mean, did you start to have the affection for the game during your high school days?
It's funny, Jim. Even when I was playing as a kid, I always wanted to kind of know what we were running, why we were running it, and I would always keep things in the back of my head as to what worked and what didn't work. And that part of the game was always a big part of me as a player. I never just scrambled around and thought about scoring points and who won the game. I was fascinated by X's and O's.
Really? Okay.
I was.
So you knew at a young age that you wanted to become a coach?
I don't know if I wanted to be a coach, but I like to know why things worked and why they didn't. Okay.
Well, then you must have been a good student in school, because if you wanted to know how things worked, then, you know, like say chemistry and biology and those types of things must have been a lot of fun for you if you wanted to know how things worked, you know? Or no?
Yeah, but unfortunately, math was something I struggled with. It would be nice if I was better at it than those two.
Yeah, no, and quite, I'm on the same boat with you there, because math, you know how back then in the SATs, you got a 200 for just spelling your name right. Well, when I took the SATs, I got a 330, so you can figure how well I did in the math. and I knew how to spell my name because it's real easy to spell. But so I got a 330 math, and 200 I got for spelling my name right. But
I'm sure you did well in the language arts because you were always one of my favorite writers. You actually knew what you were speaking about and wrote it well.
Thank you.
By yourself.
Thank you very much. That's right. I did write it by myself, unlike other people that I worked with that had people help write it. Anyway. All right. So going to college, where was it that you went to school, and did your love of sports continue on into college?
It's funny, Jim. I went to Ramapo my first year. I didn't really like it there. I transferred to St. Peter's, and in my freshman year at St. Peter's, while determining, I was convinced I was going to walk on, try and play because some of the guys on that team I had played with them in the summer, and told me I could definitely make the team and play, and I was interested in that. But I wound up in that summer. I remember I was playing in the Jersey City Summer League. And all I remember was funny. The best team there was a team called Helter Skelter. O'Corin played, Gibby Lewis played, and those guys. And I remember Bob Hurley ran the league back then. And just had like a casual,
That wasn't at St. Paul's of Greenville, was it?
Jim, I wish I could remember the schoolyard it was at.
Okay.
It was a hopping place, I'll tell you.
Okay.
And then.
Because back then at St. Paul's of Greenville. With that summer league, I don't remember the team's name, Helter Skelter, but I remember, obviously O'Corin playing in the league, and Bill Willoughby played in the league, and I used to keep score, and I was 10 years old, and Hurley used to entrusted me with the scorebook, and I was 10. I mean, it was the first time I was given any type of responsibility, and I liked that idea. And I used to go watch all those games all the time, but
that's not bad if he trusts you.
Yeah, that's true. If he trusted me, but I mean, I don't remember Gibby Lewis playing. And if you do, then you may be one of 3 people that in Hudson County that can remember Gibby as a player. So
well, he surrounded himself with O'Corin. That's phenomenal.
That's not bad at all. O'Corin tells the story about him and Ronnie Steinmetz, affectionately known as Stymie, holding the St. Joseph's scoring record up there, and they combined to score 72 points. And he said, "Yeah, Stymie had 2 and he had 7."
That kind of makes sense. That sounds right.
That's right. All right. So anyway, so you played with some of those guys that were at St. Peter's, and you figured you could walk on. And first of all, who were some of those people? And second of all, who was the coach at St. Peter's at the time? Was it Dick McDonald?
At the time, it was Whitey.
Oh, it was Bob Duquette. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and it's funny because a couple different relationships were built then, and one was between Mike Pearson and Bob. So Mike Pearson and Bob were running. They started running at Horace Mann at the time. So Mike was going to be Bob Hurley's freshman coach, and Mike and Bob were running the camp together.
Okay.
Well, David Rivers were at the camp. Jared King.
Okay.
A lot of good players. So when the camp ended, I guess there was some falling out between Bob and Mike. And Pearson called me and said, "Look, I'm not going to coach the team. Why don't you call Bob? See if he's open to you becoming the freshman coach."
Okay.
I thought about it for a week or 2, and then I called. Bob was living on Mina Drive, and I went over there.
Ferncliff Road, actually. Yeah. That's where he lived. You could get lost in Country Village if you didn't know where Ferncliff Road was. Maybe that's the reason why Hurley stayed there for as long as he did.
And I met with him and met Chris and Bobby and Danny Little, and from that point forward, I wound up spending a lot of years at White Eagle Hall.
Yeah.
And working with Bob and.
All right, so you were still in college when this took place? You were still a student at St. Peter's?
I was only 1 year older than the players.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, and you were the freshman coach first at St. Anthony's?
Yes, I was a freshman coach. The second year I was the JV coach. And from that point forward, I was Bob's assistant. I was in my early 20s at the time.
Wow. Now that must have been an incredible learning experience for you. I mean, you were learning on the job.
Yeah, I was. I literally, people don't believe it, but when I tell them after practice, we went back to his house every night. We divvied up scouting assignments, and it was a 4 o'clock to 10 o'clock every day, and I even met back at his house afterwards. I practically lived with him for 5 years.
Wow. Okay. And obviously that was a good experience for you in terms of learning a lot about basketball with Bob, right?
Yeah. A lot of people think everything I did at Marist was based on what I learned from Bob, and that wasn't true. Because if you remember, stylistically, we were completely different.
Yep.
And like when I told you years ago, when I was 13, I was fascinated with X's and O's. Even back then, I would watch college basketball, and I'd see a set, I'd write it down over and over again. I would watch because I liked X's and O's, particularly the offensive stuff. And what I learned from him was a lot of just the grit, the hard work, the 7 days a week approach, the demanding perfection, the excellence that you're trying to acquire, those kind of characteristics, which are obviously they're huge.
Right.
But in terms of the X's and O's stuff, I really had my own philosophy on things. But yeah, certainly learned a lot.
Okay. Now at that time already, were you thinking that somewhere down the road you wanted to become a head coach?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I knew if anybody knew Bob, I thought Bob would do it till he's 100.
Right.
So I wasn't going to be the head coach.
You weren't going to be the head coach there, no.
No. I'm surprised that now Bob doesn't coach now. I did a clinic with him and Greg Corinda on May 10th at Marist for Ben Gamble.
Right.
And I kind of got the impression in speaking to him then that leaving is something he may regret because I'm not coaching still. If Bob's healthy, he probably should still be doing it.
Yeah, no, I think it's now because it's 3 years removed. I think that bridge is probably crossed him, or he's probably crossed that bridge. And the fact of the matter is because I think he gets a lot of thrill out of, even though it is a 3.5 hour drive to go up to Stores and go watch Danny's games. And I just think that the coaching aspect is, even though he is healthy at 72 and he's still going strong, I kind of think that train is past the station already, so to speak. I mean, because he's 3 years removed away from it. I think if he was going to coach someplace, he probably would have gone by now. So, but
he's if you look at him, Jim, he looks healthy.
Without question. Oh God, yeah. He is a brick. You know what? He is really in good physical condition. He takes good care of himself, and he's on the stationary bike every morning at 6 o'clock, and he goes for about an hour, and he's doing far better than a lot of other people at that age. So he's doing really well. But I just think I think that bridge is, I think he's crossed that bridge already, and he's content to what he's doing, working with the little kids. With his foundation at the charter school. I think that's just my opinion. I could be wrong, I've been wrong before. So, but
I think you could plug him in somewhere tomorrow, and he would be as effective. He has the same amount of energy, and he really did. Like I said, not to be repetitive, but I was surprised at what he looked.
Yeah, no, he looks very, very good. So, okay, so how did it all transpire? You from being an assistant coach at St. Anthony's to taking over the head coaching job at Marist?
First it was Red Drennan Red was let go at the time by Mike, and so I was called. I got a phone call from Mike, and he said, I'd like you to do this. I'd like you to take this job.
Right away. There was no hesitation. There was no interview process. It was just Pearson calling you and saying, I want you to take the job.
Yes, but he had me come down and meet with the principal at the time, who was brother Mike Mullen.
Right.
Good guy, nice guy. So I met with them, and for some reason I was still a little uncomfortable with jumping right in, maybe jumping over some people who were already there, and I was a little hesitant. But Mike Mullen made me feel really at home, feel really good about what they were trying to do, and the energy and the respect they had for me as a young guy. I felt good about it, but I decided to, and this might sound crazy to you, but I wound up taking an assistant's job at St. Peter's Prep for 1 year with Harry Dammer and Dave Setembri.
Wow. Okay.
Because my thought at the time was I would like for the first time to coach a different type of kid. Harry was going to give me a lot of responsibility, which he did, and I wanted to do something that was completely different from the time I was at St. Anthony's, which was St. Peter's Prep. And Bellotti was the AD.
Right.
And I spent a year there, and I enjoyed the heck out of it. I really did. And at the end of that year, Mike let Jimmy Ostaszewski go.
Okay.
And he called me back, and Mike, he was cursing at me, calling all kinds of names. I want you to do this, you, F you,
Yep.
So at that time I said, now it's time. I went down and met with Mike and Principal Brother Edmund Sheehan, who I have tremendously, I have such fond memories of the guy. The guy was a quiet, unassuming guy, but he always put the kids first. And if Edmund Sheehan was the principal there, I'd still be there.
Okay.
So I took the job then.
All right, but when you took the job at Marist, that was not a good basketball program at all. I mean, it was struggling big time. Correct?
Well, Jim, when I took the job, they had gone 0 for the year. They didn't win a game.
Wow.
And I said, oh boy, But
as a basketball coach, Jimmy Ostaszewski was one hell of a restaurant owner.
I'm not getting into that. Jimmy's a great guy. But,
yep, I agree. He's a real good guy, and he's not a bad basketball rep. But boy, oh boy, as a coach, there was a lot to be desired back then. But that's okay. Go ahead.
So the only two guys in the program I thought who could play were Alfonso Millsap, and I know you know him. He was going to be a senior. He was going to be a senior, and so was Paul Oshis.
Right.
Well, Millsap didn't go to summer school, so they threw him out. So now I had one
player. Yeah.
Yeah, and when I went to practice the first day, I honestly, when I looked at the kids and watched what they were trying to do, remember, I spent that time at St. Anthony, so I know what a good drill looks like. And when I'm watching things go through, I literally had to go out on the court, show them how to do a figure 8 drill to just get to a simple basic layup. And it was 3 people that demonstrated. It was myself, Mandy Johnson, who was my assistant that year.
Is that true? Mandy was your assistant at Marist? Oh, God, I didn't know that.
He was, yeah, and Paul Oshis.
Okay.
So, honestly, nobody knows this, but if you ask me, my best coaching job was my first year. I won. I think we went 7-13.
Okay.
And I worked my tail off to try and get it to a point where they just understood basic basketball concepts, and I refused to jump ahead and move to point B until point A was understood by every player on that team. But what I did, which I think set the foundation, was I demanded their best 2 hours a day, every day. I put them in a shirt and tie on the road every day when we played. I put them in a study hall for an hour and a half from the time that school ended till we practiced. And they got a whole different culture. And I set the culture for what happened in year 2, which shocked a lot of people, is beating Ferris and winning the county championship.
Well, we were going to get to that in a second, but I guess perhaps the best thing you did your first year was that you did get Oshis a college scholarship, and that that almost was a miracle in itself, because nobody was going to come to watch Marist play basketball back then, and yet Oshis ended up. Did he go to FDU Florham? Where did Oshis end up going to school?
I believe he went this a long time for me too. I think he went to Mansfield, which was a Division II school. He got a scholarship.
I know he got a scholarship. So anyway, but it's a long time ago. But Oshis, became a scholarship player right away your first year, and that's where it set the tone moving forward, right? And then I guess the second best thing that happened to you as the head coach at Marist is that over that summer, You got a kid that transferred from Ferris to Marist by the name of Kevin George, and I think he helped to turn the program around in the right direction because he was a great player, and he was probably your first great player that you had at Marist, correct?
Jim, you're so right. He still is a kid that keeps in touch with Sheila and I. He knows Sam. He's come by the house, and I get the big hug from him. And when Kevin was there, I think first he probably hated me. He always talks about I couldn't believe how tough you were being on me. I thought coming in I was going to be the man, and you were all over me. But I get a hug and a kiss from the kid. He still says every time I see him, he says, "I love you, sir."
Oh, I love you, sir. Wow, you get a sir out of him. That's pretty good. Yeah.
I love that kid to this day. You're exactly right. He was the guy who came in and changed everything because he had a skill set that I don't believe they realized at Ferris, and he was going to be their JV guard because their guards were set in stone already. So, Kevin walked in the door with a kid who played.
Well, Ferris had a pair of guards at that time that I think were pretty good players in their own right by the names of Leroy Wilson and Bobby Myrick is the other one. So you know what? So they were pretty good. So Kevin, I don't know whether or not he saw the forest through the trees and realized he wasn't going to play much.
Oh, he did.
Yeah. So he decided to transfer to Marist, and that was the best thing I think that could have ever happened to your program because it gave you you and your program a sense of credibility that wow, you got now a kid of all county capability like a Kevin George.
Hey, Jim, I remember back there, I think before we played them, you told people if Marist beats Ferris, I'll eat this paper.
Right.
On your show. Yeah. But, what Kevin was, he was finally a guy for me who could get the ball up the floor, start an offense. He was very cerebral, Kevin. And he was able, I knew that if I gave Kevin the ball, we were going to get into whatever we were going to get into. But also on the break, he got the ball to the right guy at the right time. And he'd get one of my all-time favorites when he did that county championship game.
Wow. That was a clinic. The county championship game was a clinic, and I think everybody in that gym sat there with their mouth open, going, "Oh my God, does this really happen? Does this really happen?" Because if you remember the year prior, I think we're talking 1990, the year 1990, correct? Am I right?
Yeah, I think it was 88, 88, 89. Well, I think it was 88, 89 that we won the county championship.
Oh, you won the county championship. Okay. No, because 89. Yeah, because St. Anthony. You are right. Because the '89 St. Anthony team was the team that was really good. That went undefeated, but they were already gone from the county at that time. So it was '88. It was the last time that St. Anthony's lost to a team inside Hudson County, and that was Ferris. So you figured now, okay, Ferris beat St. Anthony and beat St. Anthony with Bobby Hurley and Terry DeHare and Jerry Walker, and yet a year later, you turn around with your Ferris team with Kevin George and a bunch of nobodies, and you ended up beating Ferris in the county championship game. And that was like, that was almost like the miracle on ice, except for it was at St. Peter's College.
Yeah, it was a memory I hold very dear to. And Jim, I still once in a while I plug the tape in. I'm an old man now watching the tape, and for some reason the tapes they still work. I still have a TV with a built-in VCR.
Good. And you dressed impeccable back then too. You dressed typical 1980s with the thin tie and the big lapel of the jacket. I mean, so you.
Right.
And you were still a young coach then, so you were still wearing a jacket. You weren't comfortable with just wearing a sweater. So this was the pre-sweater days. So you were wearing a jacket and stuff back then. So you were impeccably dressed and in shoes. It was a good era for you. Dress-wise, you looked really good back then. So
it's funny. You got the thin tie so right. I can't believe you remember.
Oh God, yeah.
The thin tie so right, but I looked good clothes-wise. I couldn't do anything about the face.
No, forget about that. You were in trouble. That was what your parents gave you. You had no choice with that. Okay. All right, so and to talk a little bit about yeah, we said Kevin George. Who else was on that county championship team that you had with that 1989-90 Marist basketball team?
Well, I had a freshman center named Jamal Marshall.
Oh,
And Jamal Marshall, I'll tell you this story, Jim. Jamal will tell you it the same exact way. Jamal Marshall walked in, never saw Jamal Marshall before. He walked in the gym. Well, we're having our summer open gym, and I see this kid walk in. He's 6'6", 6'7" as a freshman. He's about 50 pounds overweight,
uh-huh.
and he doesn't know much about basketball. And I know that walking in because when he walked in with a yellow sweatsuit. He had a yellow sweatshirt on and yellow pants, and I looked at him and I said, well, he's 6'7".
Can't teach 6'7". Can't teach it. Yeah, yeah.
You know, so boy, did we get to work with him, and every day in the gym was teaching him drop step,
Yep.
Jack Sigma face up moves, and little baby hooks. And from that point, he didn't realize it was over and over again. And I'll tell you a funny story about Jamal. Jamal told this story at his Manhattan induction into a Hall of Fame because I was there. He invited me to. So he told the story about it. He thanked me and he said, Coach Leonardo made me work so hard that when I got home, I was so exhausted. My mother said to me one day, Jamal, what's going on? I'm really concerned about how you look. You look exhausted. She goes, what's going on? And Jamal said, well, he said, it's like boot camp. He goes, I'm working hard, Mom. And to be honest with you, if you go say something to him, he'll throw you out of the gym too.
There was only one problem though. Jamal Marshall was so timid and so he was afraid of his own shadow, for God's sakes, back then, that he wouldn't have said boo to you. There's no way. So.
No, Jamal was a very passive kid at that time. That would change.
Oh, it did. Yeah. After he got smacked around a little bit, yeah, then that changed. But he was still a wonderful kid, just an absolute wonderful.
His mother and father were terrific people too. God, they were nice people. So we got to work with Jamal, and it was some other kids that would come on really strong as they got older too. My two guard was a kid named Donald Mitchell.
Okay.
A lefty shooter, and everybody might know this name, but my other freshman who started was a young man named
Roscoe Harris. Yeah. God rest his soul. Yeah.
Yes, and we put together a bunch of young kids who.
And who else other than Roscoe who went on to have a great career at Marist? And I guess, I don't know, he still may be Marist's all-time leading scorer. It's either him or Donnell, right?
Jamal Roscoe has scored over 2,000 points.
Yeah. All right, so
Jim, I asked the school when they closed, Roscoe's retirement
jersey
was on the wall, so I spoke to Mo and I spoke to Ben Gamble and I said, I want you to secure that for me. And they did, and I'm going to pick it up next week and I'm going to keep it with me until I'm on the other side of the dirt.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, see, I would have thought maybe his wife would have wanted that, but because I even said that to DeGennaro. I said, you got to take that jersey down. There's no other way to describe it. And she goes, he said he didn't know anybody who was involved with Roscoe's family, and I still believe his wife is around. Have you talked to his wife at all? Do you?
Never, Jim. I couldn't pick her out of a lineup.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think she's still around. So, but anyway, so Roscoe was on that team. Jamal Marshall was on that team. Donald Mitchell, who was a really, really hard-nosed little guard who was really, really tough. Played your two guard. And who else was on that county championship team?
There were a lot of kids then who you wouldn't recognize, and to be honest with you, some of those names have escaped me, but those were John Policastro played on that team too, just a thick football player like a kid, and he split some time with Jamal, and back then it was the only time I ever had played against Ferris. I played 2-3 zone, and I hate zone, but I couldn't keep up with the Ferris guards and their ability to get inside the gaps.
Right.
So I threw a little 2-3 matchup zone against them, and I got lucky.
Yeah, no, especially too because both of them that night shot so poorly in the county championship, but neither one of them did anything at all. I remember it well. And Kevin George.
My philosophy then in that game, although I played the rest of my career, it was the same as I did against St. Anthony's when we won that game. And that was, I'm going to match up people. I'm going to get off them a little bit, and I'm going to make them beat me from the perimeter. And it was the same philosophy with St. Anthony's. We said we're not going to play Goins and we're not going to play Abdullah away from the goal, and they're both good players. And if they start to shoot the wall, we're going to lose by 40. But we sloughed off onto Rod and to Jalil and to McLeod.
Yep.
And we said, go ahead and beat us on the perimeter, but you're not beating us on the interior.
Right, and that's exactly, and we're going to get to that in a second. But that's exactly the philosophy you used that night, and it's so wigged out. Both Goins and Abdullah. Because they were so wide open. I mean, you didn't guard them at all. I mean, at all. There was no, right? And there were times that they caught the ball and they were so wide open that they didn't know what to do with the ball. So it was like saying, well, do we shoot? Do we not? And it was like, so you totally wigged them out. And I don't think either one of them made a shot at all in that state championship game when you beat St. Anthony's. That was incredible. That was
a lot of people ask me why, and why didn't have to do so much with them, because they were really good players, but the Y had to do, being at St. Anthony's as long as I was, I know that if those guys missed a couple shots, and you know this as well, the pressure that Bob puts on, the stress, you're going to really get in their ass, and I knew then after the first couple, I'm going to play this game now 5 against 3.
That's it, and exactly both of them were done. They were. I mean, they didn't look to put the ball on the floor to go by anybody. They just stood there, caught the ball, and then figured they were so wide open they could shoot. And I think they were combined like 0 for 9, the two of them. They didn't do anything at all. I know it was. I remember that it's clear as a bell that you decided you played like a 5-on-3 matchup zone, and you didn't defend Abdullah and Goins at all. You said, okay, go ahead, beat me. I don't care if you beat me, you beat me. That was a masterful move. But anyway, so now you won the first county championship with that Kevin George and Roscoe Harris as a freshman. Did you know at that point that you now have turned the corner with your program? Did you know at that point, like saying, okay, we're going to be good and be good for a while?
I think so, Jim, because we just beat the number 5 team in the state, and the year before I had to go on the court to show a pass and go behind drill. So things had changed quickly, but I had so many young guys that I said to myself, boy, I got a lot of guys coming back and playing freshmen and sophomores, besides guys like Kevin. And we had developed a culture, we set a tone, and you know yourself that you can't teach that unless kids got to learn how to win. You can talk to them about winning, but unless they execute it and actually go out and win, it's a whole different thing.
Okay. But the idea that started a run where you won 6 county championships in a row. Count them, 6. And that's
Jim, I actually love. Sorry to interrupt, but I lost the next year actually to Snyder because Antoine Dasher broke his wrist a week before the game, and we had actually beat Snyder at Snyder that same year with Antoine, and they had Roy Hairston.
You had Rakeem Burgess and Cole, Alan Cole. That was They ended up winning the whole Group 3 state championship that year.
Yeah, I think we would have beat them again because we only lost a couple. And the young point guard who came in and replaced Antoine, and you'll love this name, was a young, skinny little kid from Guttenberg named
John Giraldo. Yeah.
Yeah.
And was he a freshman then?
Yeah, he was a sophomore. But he went out against some really big, strong Snyder play people, and he opened up a lot of eyes, banging threes, going around people, distributing the ball, and now I was really setting up for the future. And like you said, then we ran off quite a few in a row, 5, 6 in a row, and was with those guys at the helm.
Yeah, well, and then you had the Marist recruiting budget was huge at that time when you got a van, 2 bus drivers, and 17 kids from Guttenberg and West New York, and that was like you had the Guttenberg connection from Anna L. Klein School, and God, how many of those kids were from that ended up going to Marist? Geraldo and Randy Encarnacion and Mejia and Carrasco and Eli Camacho, whose son is now a stud at North Bergen High School now. He's a sophomore and hits threes just like his father. And
his father was a lefty shooter.
Yep.
He could knock it down.
He could knock it down. Well, his son is a righty, and he could knock it down. And he's a sophomore. He's also named Eli too as well. And that was the connection. Boy, you had North Jersey down pat with those kids, and it was.
Well, I hired at the time before they started. I hired Joe Forenza.
That's correct.
Assistant coach.
Yeah.
So Joe came along and was with me for a long time, and with Joe came all those young kids at 8th grade, and they all already had that mindset of winning. I think Joe's teams with those guys in elementary school, they never lost an elementary school game.
Never, no, and he made sure to remind the local sports writers exactly how many games they won in a row. I think it was somewhere like 104 in a row that they won, and he was like coming up to like prof blood numbers. It was like, please, like.
What's funny about Joe? He was terrific with stats and numbers.
Oh.
Before we would play every team, he would say something to me that would drive me nuts. And he would say like, Mike, we're going to win this game. And I said, Joe, please stop. He'd say, we're going to win this game by 16. And I would say, Joe, how did you come up with these numbers? He'd say, well, we beat the team that beat them by X amount of numbers, and they beat that team by this amount, so we're going to win by 16. I was like, there's a lot more to it than that, Joe, but that was Joe. He'd throw the numbers at you. The commutative property of basketball. If A beats B by 16 and B beats C by 19, therefore A should beat C by 17. Yeah, no, that's probably what he was thinking. A typical math philosophy. Yeah, but that I was never going to figure out. But no, you had that pipeline, no question, and you also did a very good job in getting some talented kids from Jersey City, and we mentioned one in Donnell Williams, who ended up going to, who was on that '92 team that won the Parochial B North State Championship, beating St. Anthony's at St. Peter's College in front of about 4,000 people at St. Peter's that night, and Donnell was on. Go ahead. What I remember about that game is at 4:30 in the afternoon for a 7:00 game, there was a line that went around the street at Yanatelli, and it was so cold, and unfortunately, an older man actually had a heart attack
and died.
On that line, and died.
Yeah.
And but they were stopping people. The game was already locked up, and I had a hard time getting people I had on my list to be able to get to the game, including my parents, who actually were able to get in. But when we walked in the game to go to the locker room to get dressed, it was already sold out. And you're walking in, the place is packed.
Right.
And you say, like there were people sitting. I still have the tape. There were people sitting in the walkway up to get to the top. From the bottom to the top, you couldn't even walk. You had to walk around. People already sitting in the aisle.
Absolutely. And I remember clearly that I had to go get my chair from upstairs, because I worked at St. Peter's at the time. I had to go get my chair from upstairs and bring it down to put it on press row, because there were no chairs for me to sit. So I said, okay, well, I got to go get one from upstairs to go sit down. It was incredible, and it was I'll never forget that day as long as I live, because it was you and nobody will agree to it, but you outcoached Bob Hurley that day, and it was a W for your team, and you had talented players, but there's no way in the world he was ready for the fact that you were not going to guard those two players, and it totally took them right out of the game. So, they might have had Rashawn McLeod and Jaleel Roberts, and I'm trying to think Roger Rhodes was on that team too, right?
Yeah, that was their front line. You talk about their front line was Kentucky, Wisconsin, and Duke.
Right. And two of those three played in the NBA. Yeah. In Rod and Rashawn, they both played in the NBA. So It says a lot. So, but
You know what's crazy, Jim, and you could ask Rod about this, but Rod played in a grammar school tournament. So did Roscoe for
on the same team.
for Chris Dandridge.
Yes, absolutely. For this, the name of that team was Assumption All Saints.
Assumption All Saints.
Yeah, and I was coaching St. Paul's of Greenville, and they only beat me by about 60, maybe 70. And they were dunking. I mean, here they were like in 7th grade, and they were dunking on us left and right, and then running the press. And I knew Dandridge from he was not only was he coaching the Assumption All Saints team, but he was already an assistant at St. Mary's. And he's dunking on me left and right, and I'm going, Chris, you got to do something to stop this. I said, you know.
You know that I can say now, but I went to watch them play a championship game in Jersey City on a Super Bowl Sunday, and Roscoe was on the team with Rod.
Right.
And I got to leave early because Rod broke the rim and knocked it down in warm-ups.
Is that true?
Yeah, I swear he broke the rim, and we all had to leave the gym.
Wow.
Play the game. So when Rod and Roscoe played in the tournament at Marist, they were in the championship game. They won it. After the game, and even I was surprised, we were kidding with Rod, and he announced to everybody when he won the MVP trophy for the league that he was coming to Marist.
Rod said he was coming to Marist?
Yeah.
Wow.
He announced it, and I said to myself, am I really getting Rod and Roscoe?
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, during the course of some time, Rod changed his mind, you know. And
he might have regretted that now. I'm only kidding. Go ahead.
Yeah, but he played for Gary Greenberg. He was a Gary Greenberg guy, and Gary never sent kids to me.
No.
Great relationship, you know.
Yeah.
So all his guys went to St. Anthony's.
Every single one of them. Yep.
Could you imagine if I had the two of them?
Oh God. That's why Chris never lost a game when he was at Assumption All Saints. Why? How could you? Shlomo Blumstein could have been the point guard in playing grammar school and just pass the ball to those kids. And in 7th grade, they were dunking like they were in the NBA. It was
unbelievable.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I didn't get a chance because he broke the backboard.
That's amazing. So, all right. And then mind you, too, we're talking about 92. You won the state sectional championship. You went to the Tournament of Champions. You played at the Meadowlands Arena, and unfortunately, you came up, I think, 3 points short to the Earl brothers and the other guy, Allen, who played at Villanova. Was that Shawnee?
That was Shawnee. They had a 5-man too who wound up signing with Florida State. They were a lot better than people thought, but the thing that irks me about that game was we were up by 6 at half, and we come out. We always had a set to start the third quarter, and we got Roscoe on a nice set, and he got fouled. He missed 2 foul shots. John Giraldo got fouled on the next possession. He missed 2 foul shots.
John Giraldo missed 2 foul shots?
Right. So
that must have been the only 2 he missed all year. Go ahead.
Harris and Giraldo shot 90% from the foul line.
Right.
And the 2 of them were 0 for 4, and I said to myself, boy, that never happens. What just happened? But another part that really hurt us was the night before the game, Randy Encarnacion playing basketball with his little brother, fell down and broke his wrist. Now my starting 2 guard.
Oh, God.
So I wound up playing guys who were younger and were good. But the problem is, and as you know it, if you don't have time to prepare when a guy who plays 28 minutes is not going to play, and you're playing guys who during the course of the game are going to play 4 or 6 minutes during the course of it, it's very difficult to establish that they're going to play big minutes and then somebody's going to fill in for their minutes. And it would have been nice to see what would have happened if you still played.
Yeah.
It's funny, I played 2 big games. The only county championship game I lost was when Antoine Dasher broke his wrist with Snyder, and I lost that game, and Encarnacion broke his wrist as well. I didn't play either game at full strength, but I should have won both. No excuses. We had a chance to win. We're up at 6 at the half. We should have been up by 10, and it didn't go our way. I've never watched the tape of that game. I have the tape, but I've never watched it.
You never watched the tape of it, huh?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I would imagine you probably watched the tape of the game that you played St. Mary's in the county championship game at Yanatelli, in a game that you were I think down 9 with 2.5 minutes left to go, and you came back and you won, and without a shot clock to come back from down 9 with 2 minutes left to go was amazing, and you needed everything to happen right for you guys to win. And I think Alvaro Mejia hit 3 threes down the stretch to help you win that game, and they just St. Mary's unraveled. I mean, there's no question that they should have won. In my mind, they should have won because you have that kind of a lead with 2.5 minutes left to go and no shot clock. You should win the game, and you guys won.
You have some memory because you're exactly right about that. And I remember looking over at Tommy Lalicato, who was coaching, and Tommy hadn't won one.
Right.
Kind of championship, and he's got a white towel over his head, and he's waving the towel. He's so excited. And I don't blame him.
Right.
They're gonna beat us. And he's going nuts over there. And one of the things I always did in my career, Jim, and my guys will tell you this, I always saved one set on offense, one set on defense that I would never run until I was losing at the end of the game, and I wanted to have something different. And the one thing I had different, which really helped us, was after Alvaro hit that first 3, and as you know, Alvaro could really shoot.
Shoot it big.
I changed up. I played with it. We played. That's the third time we've played them. We both won once.
One game.
We won at St. Mary's. They beat us at Marist, which doesn't happen often.
Right.
And I told the kids then after we score, we're in a diamond press, and we hadn't done it ever against them. 3 times we played them, and as soon as Alvaro hit, we doubled the ball in the inbounds. They threw the ball away. Alvaro hit a second 3, and we were still in the diamond. And as they advanced the ball, because those 9 points that you said we were down by, you're exactly right, but we're still down 9 with 1:02 on the clock, because I do have that tape.
Really? 9? You were down 9 with 1:02 left?
Yeah.
Wow.
Down 9. And then...
and no shot clock. I mean, that's amazing. Go ahead.
We turned them over again at half court. Alvaro hit the third 3, and we somehow wound up in a tie game down the stretch, and we were able to pull it out. But
yeah, once the game got tied, you could see that any ounce of confidence that St. Mary's had was gone. Like they were looking at each other like, oh God, we're now in a game. And the momentum swing was just huge. Like you had the game won once it got tied. Like there was no way that team was going to win the game. And but I thought with down the stretch, I thought with a 9-point lead, I thought that they had the game won. I think everybody thought they had the game won. So. With the exception of Alvaro Mejia. Alvaro Mejia was probably the only guy in the building that thought that you guys still had a chance because he hit 3 threes down the stretch.
Yeah, Alvaro wound up getting a scholarship to play basketball at FGU, and he might be the smallest player ever to play.
Yeah.
But he was John Giraldo's cousin.
Yes.
And the two of them always played together when they were young, and Alvaro was always hanging around the gym when John was playing. And I knew he was coming to Marist, but... Joe Forenza was another guy who did a good job with kids when they were young. He taught them how to shoot the ball correctly, and I continued that because I was a big believer in gapping and kicking offensively, which means we spent a lot of individual time in practice of breaking people down off the dribble, and then having our wing players stay behind the line, and they would adjust their spacing so that they would be open on the gap. And from John Durant, from Kevin George on to John and Antoine Dasher and Alvaro and Randy and Warren Anderson,
right?
We spent all our time in practice working on gapping and kicking and shooting the ball. Mm. And I could shoot the ball when I played, and then people don't realize as a big coach, I still was able to develop a lot of guards who played Division I basketball, and our big theme and our concept was gap it and kick it. And then you got guys like Roscoe on the wing, and we played Danell on the wing, despite the fact he was a big kid.
Right.
And we had all our shooters locked in and ready to go, and that's the way we played.
Right. And through that whole realm, when you won as many county championships in 6 in a row, I guess it's 6 in a row and 7 out of 8 years. So many of those kids went Division I and got scholarships, and I don't know what the grand total was, but you probably know better than me, but you had to have at least 20 kids that went and got Division I scholarships out of those 8 years that you were coaching that reign of terror in Hudson County.
You hit it right on the number, Jim. It was 20.
20, yeah. So that's an astronomical number when you think of, like, there's no way in the world that Marist, even still to this day, in all those years since you left, I don't know whether or not they've had 20 in all those years. Like, but you had in those 8 years 20 kids that went to Division One, and I know just that number because how many letter signings did I went to at Marist where the kids were signing letters of intent to go to Division One. It was amazing. It was a great run. All right.
You know, I always remember too is when Geraldo was walking off the court of the Saints game. I remember a guy who coached the St. John's thing, and you know it was the real Big East back then. There was the heavy duty Big East.
Yep.
And the assistant coach at St. John's was a guy named Ron Rutledge.
Oh yeah, sure.
Ron Rutledge comes racing across the court to me as I'm actually, celebrating. I'm about to leave the court, and he grabs me by the elbow, and he says, Mike, tell Geraldo we're offering him right now. And I said, here's a kid, a skinny little kid from Guttenberg, who now is a senior, is being offered by St. John's, and the St. John's that included the old Georgetown, Syracuse, all the major games that were going on back then. So I walked in the locker room. And after we were going nuts because we won the game, as we were leaving, I said to Joe and John, I said, John, you're not going to believe this, but St. John's just offered you a full ride, Big East basketball. And as the time went on, a couple days later, I said to, I can't remember who it was back then, one of my assistants, and I said to him, I don't think John's going to go.
Yeah, no.
Because John's the kind of kid, he's got the character, because he already told the guys from Monmouth he was going to go to Monmouth.
Mm-hmm.
And he said to me at that point, he said, Coach, I'm really grateful to them, but I'm going to stick with Monmouth. And I thought to myself, boy, that's a big character move,
Yeah, no, and incredible. If you remember, after he was at Monmouth for 1 year, the rumor was rampant that he was going to go transfer to St. John's. It was all over. It was in all the major newspapers. It was in the New York Daily News. So then, I had a great relationship with John. I still do. And I called him up. I said, John, off the record, are you going to St. John's? He goes, hell no. I said, you're not leaving? He goes, no, I'm staying here. I mean, this is a great program. I'm not leaving to go to St. John's. I don't know where they're getting it from, but I'm not going. So then, sure enough, I said, well, I can't write it because they said off the record. So I called him back. I said, I suppose I write it on the record. He goes, go ahead. You just can't say that I told you. I said, oh, well, who am I going to say said it? But I knew he wasn't going. He was adamant to the fact that he was sticking to St. John's. There was no question. I mean, to Monmouth. And he had a great career at Monmouth. He's a Hall of Famer. So,
like Jamal, he wound up in the Monmouth.
Yeah.
Jamal wound up in the
Manhattan Hall of Fame. So, all right. So then you stayed at Marist until the '94 season.
No, I coached 10 years at Marist. The '98 season at Marist, we beat North Bergen in the county championship, and at that time it was
Ricky Apodaca.
Yeah, the county game was moved over to
Jersey City State. Yeah.
So that was the team I had that had Felton and those guys. Chris Martinez.
Oh yeah, sure, okay, all right. So that was a pretty good team too.
Yeah, we had beaten Ferris the year before.
Right.
We beat Snyder,
North Bergen.
And my relationship with the principal at Marist was not good. The new guy, and to be honest with you, he didn't like me, and I hated him. I think he didn't like me because I hated him. But Brother Redmond Sheehan was gone, and he was my guy. And the guy who came in was more a guy who cared more about finances and money than he did about sports. And it was time for me to go. And people don't know this, but I spoke to a kid who played for me who had moved to Staten Island, and he moved from Boston. His name was Kareem Horton. And he said to me, I haven't spoken to you in all these years. I called him to tell him because somebody had mentioned to me that he was upset about how the whole thing had laid out years ago, but I could never find him. But the reason I left Marist was twofold. One was Rick Pitino came into I had met him and he was recruiting a lot of kids over here, so he happened to stop in because he wanted to speak to me about James. So like I always did when famous coaches came into the gym, I introduced them to the principal. And this brother Kevin guy couldn't have been more kind of put off by it. But the guy shook his hand and, had lot of good things to say about the program, but his response to me after the guy left was, "You can get that guy to give me a new gym floor." And I said to him, "That's a violation, and once you do something like that, you're handing the kid to that coach."
Yep.
And I'm not doing that. And the last thing was, he called me in at the end of the year and he said to me, "I know I can't fire you. I'm not dealing with that publicity. But I'm telling you, if you stay here, these kids will never travel again. They'll never play at Madison Square Garden, and I'm not having you travel. You'll play a league schedule." And I thought to myself,
wow. Why in the world would a guy who's an administrator at your school and you're giving them hundreds of thousands of dollars in publicity and college scholarships to those kids, why in the world would he say something like that? I don't understand. That's totally detrimental to the kids. So, but go ahead.
He certainly didn't have the old school Marist values like Brother Edmund and Mike Mullen had. And when he said it to me, I left the office and I said to myself, for a guy who didn't want me here, that was the smartest thing he could do. It was nasty. It was terrible for the kids, but he was that type of guy. But what he did was he put in my head, if I stay, it'd be selfish for me because now the kids I loved are going to play a local schedule. I can't look them in the eye and tell them why we can't or that we can't do what we've been doing for the last 70 years, traveling, meeting people all over the country, and it was great times. But he basically told me, you either stay because you want to be here and deny the kids the right to travel, or you leave. I get somebody else and they still can do what's going on. And I said, next day I came in with a letter and I said, I'm out.
Wow. And that was that.
I've only told two people that story. Kareem Horton, who wanted to know why I left. We talked 25 years later. I told him that story, and I'm telling you now.
Wow.
Besides my wife.
Of course, you tell her everything. Thank God. Yeah. All right. So was there a huge sense of sadness? Obviously, that you were leaving the place. Obviously, it was your alma mater. You had a sense of love and pride in the program. You brought a lot of notoriety and publicity to the school, and there are a lot of banners that are hanging on a wall because of your coaching. Was there a sense of sadness in the fact that you were leaving?
Well, first of all, thank you for saying that. But yes, I was crushed, Jim. And I'll be honest with you, to this day, when I think about basketball, I was crushed because I knew that I was never going to coach again. So, the headlines...
You knew definitely at that time you were never going to coach again?
Yeah, because I don't know if I regret it, but to this day, my loyalty to those kids, the relationship I had with everybody at Marist, I didn't know if I could reproduce that somewhere else. I didn't know if I could do it. Not because I knew I could win somewhere else, but the love I had for Marist, the kids, it kind of broke my heart, to be honest with you.
Wow.
What people didn't know is I had the same relations with the kids in my class. I loved going to work every day, and what people didn't realize also was they thought, you didn't have to do anything or worry about just coaching. I taught 5 classes. I never asked anybody to reduce my schedule. I coached 5 classes and I had home. I taught 5 classes and I had home.
Right.
And I loved the kids in my class. I'll tell you, Jimmy, I was one of the first 2 guys to sign a Nike contract back then. I know it's all over the place now, but back then it was unheard of.
Right.
And I signed my Nike contract in 1997 with George Raveling, and I actually went up to Beaverton, Oregon, and they had what they called was the grassroots committee, which were going to be the first high school guys signed with Nike. And the hilarious thing is, on the plane, I didn't know this, but my seat was right next to Kevin Boyle.
Oh, really? Okay.
Kevin and Boyle and I hated each other. It's just more of a competitive thing, just like LeBron, just a competitive thing where you want to rip each other's heads off.
Right.
So Kevin and I took a 5-hour, 6-hour flight to Oregon together, and it was hard to have much conversation, but we tried, and we both shipped us to Beaverton, Oregon together, and I thought that was kind of ironic.
It would have been even better if they put you in the same room together than if you're checking in at the hotel and there you are in the same room with Boyle. Yeah.
Thank God I had my own room when I got there. our gear.
Right.
And over the course of the years, I had a contract. My first one was with LA Gear, then I switched to Adidas. Sonny Vaccaro and I signed with Sonny, and then I wound up signing with George Raveling. But over the years, I never asked Marist for a dime. I put the kids in their sneakers, their uniforms, even the basketballs when Nike came around. Nike supplied the school with. The only thing they had to supply their kids with was local bus trips because Nike paid for and Adidas did for our traveling to different tournaments.
Wow.
Our uniforms, our warm-ups, and this was the 90s, and as you know, besides myself and Bob and Kevin Boyle, there weren't guys walking around with contracts like that. But
no.
But the $25,000 I had, I think Sheila thought I was crazy too. I didn't take a dime of it. I used all of it on the kids. I bought shoot-away machines, which were $2,500 each, because I loved the machines because they had these big nets attached to them, and these aisles, these metal aisles,
Yep.
would bolt into the net. They would come out, but I was one of the first guys buying them, and the only time I considered or thought about getting money was when I found out that they had my picture and Roscoe's shooting at the NCAA tournament when they were trying to sell their shoot-aways, but they never asked me if they used my likeness. But I didn't. I didn't pursue anything against them because I'm not that kind of guy. But
Yeah.
I enjoyed the machines. But yeah, that's how it ended with brother Kevin, and I was proud of the fact that I never took a dime. I was making $35,000 as a teacher and coach, and we were winning at a national level. People thought that money had a lot to do with those things, and they made a lot of money. I didn't make a lot of money, and what I made, I used on the kids.
No, that's amazing. So, but I can't believe now and this is the first time that you and I have known each other for God knows how long. You never told me that you thought at that time when you left Marist that you were never going to coach again. I thought that you were going to end up someplace, and I think everybody thought you were going to end up someplace and be a coach again.
I don't think I've told anybody that, Jim. Besides, again, my wife knows, and now you know. But I knew when I left. But the Sunday after I left, it was in the papers. I went outside to pick up. I was going down a block. There was a shop on the corner where I would get some donuts and stuff in the morning. I opened my door, and I lived at 14 West 49th. I was renting an apartment on the second floor, and I go outside, and on the floor is a bag and shirts and hats. So I look at this, and I'm like, what the hell is this? So I pick it up. In the bag are some bagels, and I take the shirts and the hats upstairs, and there's a note inside the bag when I take it out, and he'll tell you this. It was from a guy named Mike Rich, who used to be the AT in Northburg.
Yep, I know him well. Yeah.
And Mike was at Plainfield High School.
Yeah.
And he said, enjoy the bagels. I'd love to see you wearing the shirt and hats. And they were Plainfield High School coaching shirts and hats.
So he wanted you to come and coach at Plainfield.
Yeah, and somehow Mike Spina found out. And Mike Spina wrote in the paper the next week in the Dispatch that Leonardo's going to Plainfield.
Oh my God! Really?
So to be honest with you, I didn't want to go anywhere, as I just told you. But
Yeah.
I gave him the courtesy of. I met with him and a superintendent of schools whose name was Dr. Ed. I can't believe I'm telling you all this because
Okay.
I've never told anybody. I met with them and I had dinner with them in a restaurant in Bayonne. So after I had dinner with them, they invited me to the high school. Even driving to the high school, Jim, I said to myself, I should just call this off. I don't want to do this. But, you know, the thought of still coaching, in the back of your mind, it was hard for me to pull the plug completely. But deep down, I knew I wouldn't take the job. And the irony is when I got there, I met a guidance counselor whose last name was Williams. And she lived in Plainfield, and her son was Jason Williams.
Oh, you're kidding me!
No.
Oh, wow.
And she said to me, and Mike Rich will tell you this, if you come to Plainfield, my son will transfer from St. Joe's and he will come back to Plainfield. And I thought to myself,
Wow.
But what people don't know is I never took that job, but I did. I would have been coaching her son.
Wow. Well, that's an incredible. See, you never told me that story either. So, all right. So,
I know kids on the team and everything. everything.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right, so now you left Hudson County and you went to Sayreville to become the assistant principal and in charge of discipline there too as well. And
Yeah, Jim,
you
that
had to
took a
get a
lot out of
job,
me.
right? You know, so
Yeah, Jim, that took a lot out of me. That might be the reason as I got older that I didn't acquire this terrible disease that I have now. But when I got there, and you know my style, I was given a tour of the building, and I was told that things were a little crazy. So it's different than Marist, Jim. So I was expecting craziness when I opened up the door. So I'm walking in the door, and I'm walking around in the first hallway, which I would learn to be is the A wing. It's a very high traffic wing. So I see some kids in a hallway, and I say to myself, well, there's a couple of hundred kids out here. And I say, well, it doesn't look that bad from the passing from one class to the other. And the guy on left turns around to me and goes, this isn't passing. They're supposed to be in class now. So I thought, oh boy. But man, from the time I put my coat on the hanger, I went crazy. I got them all in the room every day, and I made sure they knew anybody who looked at me cross or said something to a teacher, I suspended them. And it just we got to a point where got things under control. And
okay.
people realized that if you do X, Y is going to happen. But I didn't realize in public school the totality of the job. Jim, I dealt with things that I just couldn't believe even existed. Of course, you remember I spent my whole time in private school.
Right.
I taught at St. Anthony's. I was a coach at Prep for a year, and then I moved over to Marist, and I wasn't open to the public school scenarios. But gosh, I liked my time at Sayreville after a while. I really enjoyed the people, and the district was good. There were really solid teachers. There were terrific people in central office. But I had to work to a degree other than with basketball that I couldn't fathom. I was there all morning, all afternoon, all night, and I dealt with things, Jim. In my office, I would see kids who were coming to me who were abused by parents, and I tried to deal with those parents. I saw a girl in school who was actually killed on the way home, and her name was Nancy Noga, and I remember going out with the police to where she was killed, and I'm thinking,
oh God.
I said, I went home and told Sheila I couldn't sleep for days. I saw Nancy Noga in the middle of the winter, face down behind a shopping plaza with her face frozen to the ground.
Oh God.
And their parents, the reason I was there was the parents and people didn't want to identify her. I went there with some of the police officers, and I worked hard on this with a guy named Richie and Sloan and Al Cox. But looking at her, she had been hit. Is it all right if I tell you the story?
Go ahead, tell me. Say.
She was hit in the back of the head with what was a large tree branch, and you could see the divot in her head.
Oh God.
And for years, a great detective in town, Richie Sloan, he was the head of the juvenile bureau. Richie tried to find out who killed her. And I think Rich and I both know who killed her, but he couldn't prove it. But it wasn't their parents that were proven to have done it, and it wasn't a kid in the school. But when I tell you, the irony for us was the parents had her cremated so quickly, and they left town. And the young man that they were pursuing as well as a lead, he left town, but I think Richie Sloan, he retired and he moved to Montana.
Wow.
But I think to this day the guy still calls back and he tries to find out if anybody has any leads on it. But it was to me that when that happened, it changed me. It changed me a lot.
I can imagine. Yeah.
And from that point forward, I struggled. And then I left.
And obviously Sayreville had its share of controversy. I don't know if you were still working at the school, but they had a hazing incident where a football player was hurt by other members of his football team, and it ended up hurting the coach, the football coach, and it put a black cloud over Sayreville High School for quite a period of time. But I think maybe by then you were already retired. Is that correct? Yeah.
I had just left.
You just left. Yeah. God bless. Yeah.
The irony now is George Najar, the football coach.
Yeah. What a great guy. God.
He still is to this day one of my best friends. I talk to him 4 or 5 times a week.
Oh, do you really? Oh, okay. Well, God bless. He was a great guy, great football coach, and just
people know the whole story. George Najar shouldn't have been.
No, he should have never been. But they had to.
They had to point to figure out somebody.
Absolutely, there's no question. But real quickly, I wanted to say about your days in Sayreville. You had the pleasure to work for a while with a mutual good friend of ours, both of us, in the immortal Tommy Gentile, and how good of a person was that to work with at Sayreville?
Oh, what a great guy! He
Yep.
was so happy all the time. Tommy just was one of those guys. When you were around him, you felt good about things, even if you were having a bad day. I don't know if I came across anybody who didn't like Tom Gentile after they got to know him. Amazing guy.
No, absolutely incredible. And I just missed him taking over as the principal at St. Al's High School when I was the girls' basketball coach at St. Al's. If he got there 1 year later, I would have never left St. Al's, and because I had a problem with the principal. Well, the principal had a problem with me; she fired me. But I probably would have.
Seems to be a common theme here.
Yeah, no, I would have never left. I would have never left St. Al's. And then he even said, Jimmy, why couldn't this happen a year later? Because he says, there's no way in the world that I deserve to lose my job over what I did. I refused to shake the opposing coach's hand after she beat me 88-13. And
I can understand that.
yeah, no, and she would come up to me and said, "Nice game." I said, "Nice game. Look at my girls. Look at the nice game." So I refused to do it, and I said, and Tommy knew the whole circumstances of what happened, and we lost Tommy a couple of years ago, and just a really, really great guy, and I still miss him. And Tommy and I had a very good relationship, and I know the two of you work together.
Yeah, he was a great guy.
Yep.
Getting back to coaching, I remember, I don't know how, but I was in a gym somewhere and you were coaching. And all I remember was, and I can remember this to this day, there was a bad call and you somehow wound up, you almost was spinning on the floor. And so I saw you, after you were screaming, I saw you on the floor and you're spinning on the floor. I said, you were a terrific actor on the sideline.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, that's really something that I really wanted to lay my hat on. I just all I wanted to do was, and I was, in retrospect, I who knows, but I used to get really, really into it with referees. There's no question. I guess a lot of us did. If you were passionate about your team, you would, you wanted to. Yeah, I would imagine you probably saw me coaching my biddy team, which were boys, not the girls.
Yes.
And
boys. It was boys.
yeah, and I had one of the better biddy programs in Jersey City, and I was blessed to have as some of my players, Rashawn Berno and Carlos Cueto played for me too as well. So and Rashawn McLeod was too tall. I just mentioned it to him on Facebook yesterday. He just missed playing for me. If he was, in biddy basketball, I think he was 5'9", and the cutoff was 5'8", so he couldn't play. But I think that's probably where you saw me in my absolute lunacy, was as a biddy basketball coach, which I was completely out of control. So,
yeah, there were a lot of good players. I guess that's why I was there.
Yeah, no, I was very fortunate, and I loved coaching. I love coaching basketball, but I didn't. I did it for 11 years on the biddy level, and then I did it 3 years coaching girls high school basketball, and that
I'm sure you helped a lot of kids. Those kids, I know Carlos very well, and I know he thought very highly of you.
Yep, he's still. To this day, I am very, very pleased that I've got kids that I coached that still call me coach, and I think that's the greatest greatest compliment I can receive from any of those kids. Did any of those kids that I coach, they still call me coach, and I love that part. And all the kids, I don't think I had a kid that I coached over the years that I didn't totally love, and I bet you probably feel the same way. I mean, there were, I loved every single kid that played for me. From the stars to the kids that was like the 12th, 13th player on the bench. I loved every single one of them. And it's that kind of thing is the one thing that I miss about coaching more than anything else. So, all right. So you.
I feel the same way.
Okay. Now, you told me a couple of years ago that you were going to surprise the hell out of everybody, and that you were in the prime, and you never told me where the comeback was. Can you tell it now, or is it too bad to say? Or is there a possibility now at your age that you may still want to come back and coach?
You know, that tournament at champion game still leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I always told myself that I have one thing to finish before I die, and that's winning that last game. But what I told you that day it was 99% at the time that was going to happen. And I had spent a couple of weeks with those people, and I gave them my word that I wouldn't release the information. But I thought the next time I spoke to you, you were going to congratulate me, and I was.
Well, you said you were going to call me, and I was going to be the first person you were going to tell, and that was going to be a major story. I said, "Okay, I'm ready," and it never happened. So.
Yeah, I think the only other person who knew, because he said he knew, was a guy who was my AD back then. The Marist was Mike Pearson.
Okay. Well, he knows that Pearson knew everything, and
I still talk to him now because I think he's looking for a coach. It's not going to be me, by the way.
Okay.
He's looking for a coach, and one of the gentlemen that I'd like to see get the job. He actually is a St. Anthony's guy, but he's a good guy. But I'd like to see something work out for him. But I still keep in touch with Mike, and more now than I did probably 10 or 15 years after I left.
Oh wow, okay. Well, I would like if we are talking about the same person. Yeah, it would be really good if Ben Gamble took the Bayonne job. Yeah, it would be it would be a great hire for Bayonne, and it would be a great thing for everything. The only problem is, could he be able to get all 9 of those kids to transfer from Marist to Bayonne? I think that would raise a little bit of an eyebrow in the eyes of the NJSIA, and it's already happened once with Marist, and they took down a state baseball championship from it. So I don't know whether or not they do it for basketball, but
the big difference is the school's closing.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a big difference. Yeah.
Big difference. So anyway, looking back,
that's a tough thing, though, when the school's closing.
Oh, and can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, that's a place that you spent. Your 4 years of high school and then 10 years as a coach and a teacher. The sense of sadness that you have that your alma mater is closing.
Yeah, you're so right about that, because years ago, and it may not have been the right thing to do from my perspective, but I was called to say I was going to be put in the school's Hall of Fame, and I told them I didn't want any part of it. There's still some bad feelings for me there with the school. However, the following year, John Giraldo called me and said he wanted me to be there because he was being inducted. So I kind of I bit my lip and I went. It was because it was a kid. It wasn't me. It wasn't about me anymore. It was about John. So I was happy to say, I know him. I know his family. I know his 2 kids. My wife does as well. They're great. And I went, and I'm glad I went because it was a nice day. And also, while I was there, I noticed too that they had named a court off. The court, they have to build a Fazio.
Yes.
She was a friend of yours, but he also coached Sheila, so that was a nice thing to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Billy and I was very, very, very close, and he coached me in football, so that's why it's and basketball a little bit too. But he was a great football mind. Gosh, you were just a great man, and somebody who I was very, very close to for a long time. Long time.
As you know, his wife.
Yes, unfortunately, just passed away a couple weeks ago. Yeah. Right, true. That's very close to Sheila. All right, so now you brought up Sheila a couple times. You're married to the former Sheila Wall, who was a great basketball player in her own right. She played at St. Anthony's and then played at LaSalle. And how did that all transpire? How in the world first of all did you meet Sheila, and how in the world did you then start the date and get married and have a daughter?
Yeah, that happened when Sheila was at LaSalle. I was still doing some gigs, doing some speaking stuff. I happened to remember her from our time at St. Anthony's, and I happened to be there when she was playing, and waited after the game to sit around and talk to her, and kind of moved forward from there. And yes, we do have a great daughter,
and how old is Samantha now?
Samantha is 21, and
wow, time flies, God.
Yeah, she's going to graduate from TCNJ now, and she'll be teaching. But I got a great Samantha story for you, very quick.
Go ahead.
When Samantha was a little girl, I had a court in my yard here in New Providence. So I thought, I waited a little while, so when Sam was about 7 or 8, I said, why don't we go outside and shoot some hoops together? So she said, all right, Dad. So we go outside. So now I'm all fired up. I started talking to her about shooting the ball and having her elbow in and following through. And I'm going like a jerk. I'm going through the whole thing with her. So she takes the ball and she shoots it and she misses. So I go after the rebound. So I'm going after the rebound because I want to get back to her and explain what she did wrong. I pick up the ball and I go back to her and I see her bending over. She goes, look, Dad, a pretty leaf. That's it. And she never played basketball. She played volleyball and was very good. Matter of fact, she had an offer of a half scholarship at LaSalle, which she wound up going to, but then she wind up transferring to TCNJ, and it was the right move for her.
Okay, but I was going to say that if she got really interested in basketball and she needed somebody to teach her how to shoot, she should have went to Mom instead of Dad. That's for damn sure. Like, I don't care how successful you were as a coach. Like, we all know what you were as a player and what Sheila was as a player, and I don't think there's any contest. Although, I don't know, playing one-on-one, you probably had a little bit of a height advantage on Sheila, but that's about it,
Well, the kids will tell you, in an open gym, she ran around and played, but she was a terrific fouler. She'd foul guys, she'd get pissed off, she'd foul guys. Sheila wasn't somebody who's just going to let you score, and then if you one guy or a girl, but they always kid in open gym, but she could hold her own in our open gym. She was a good player, certainly better than I was.
Yeah, no, and on the same level, but I mean, Sheila was tough as nails, so.
She was a 1,000-point scorer. She got,
yep.
I don't know if people know this, but she was offered a Fulbright at Ohio State.
No, I didn't know that. No, wow.
Yeah, she had a Big Ten school. She wound up going to LaSalle. She has a terrific relationship and still does with Speedy Marist. Speedy's older now and is a little sick, but Sheila went to see him just a couple weeks ago.
Oh, that's great. And Speedy then went from coaching the women at LaSalle to end up coaching the men. And I do a really good impersonation of Speedy because the LaSalle men, when he was the coach, they were very good. They had Lionel Simmons and Tim Legler and Doug Overton, and I just remember Overton was a freshman, and he went nuts and was screaming at a game when I was at St. Peter's, and he's going, Overton, stop shooting the ball! Because Overton's shooting the ball. No, he shouldn't have shot the ball. He's got Lionel Simmons on the same team who scored 2,700 points in his career. Give the ball to Lionel. The L train, take it to the L train. But that was.
It's funny. Sheila's best friend at LaSalle, and she still knows her well, was Jen Legler. She played on the team with her, and obviously she's Jen Legler because she married Tim.
Tim, right? And what was her maiden name, Jen?
That's a good question.
Yeah, she played at LaSalle too, right?
Yeah, she was Sheila's roommate.
Oh wow, okay.
What was Jen Legler's maiden name? Snyder.
Oh, I remember her. Sure, she was a player. She was a good player. Boy, when I was working at St. Peter's as the SID, and Sheila was at LaSalle, we had some wars. I mean, St. Peter's and LaSalle had wars, and including one huge fist fight. I mean, I don't know if Sheila might have been graduated by then, but we had a player on our team named Brenda Payne who took a cold cock punch at the best player in the league girl, I think Alicia Sneed, I think her name was. Sneed was definitely the last name, and she cold cocked Sneed, and the referees threw the both of them out of the game, and it was a really good win for St. Peter's because Brenda Payne wasn't that good of a player, and Sneed got thrown out of the game too, and she was the best player in the league. So it was what a great trade that was. But
now we talk about that the LaSalle days. I think Sheila as a freshman was on the All MAC team. She was a 1,000-point scorer at LaSalle. She was a 1,000-point scorer at St. Anthony. She had scholarship offers to Big Ten schools. She's won county and state championships at the high school level and played in the NCAA tournament against Tennessee. Yet she's not in the Hudson County Hall of Fame as she should be.
yeah, no, I agree, and I don't understand why she's not, but. That might be another subject altogether. And just briefly tell what Sheila's doing now as a career.
Sheila is a deputy director of a halfway house. She's been working in for Educational Health Centers of America. She now works all the way down in Trenton every day, but most of her career she spent in Kearney at a place called Talbot Hall.
Talbot Hall, right? Yeah. So, but she now works in Trenton.
Yeah, she works at the halfway house. They sold the building just a couple months ago, maybe I'm bad with time, maybe 6-8 months ago. So she recently started working all the way down to Trenton.
Boy, that's a horrible commute every day, huh?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. So to sum it all up, Mike, you've had an incredible life. You met your wife through basketball. You got several championships through coaching basketball. Your entire life was, for most of it was, before we sum it all up, I can't say tragically, but it's certainly sad in that about 20 years ago you were diagnosed with a very rare illness. And if you can, please tell people what your illness was and how big of a battle that was and still is to this day.
Yeah, Jim, I was sitting in my office at Sayreville one day and my body just started burning so bad that I actually thought to myself, if this lasts 2 minutes, I don't think I can handle this. And my body it was like somebody had a light flame under my skin. And I subsequently, I went home and I was screaming. And that was the path that Sheila and I took. We wound up a journey of trying to find out what was wrong with me because nobody knew, and we went from hospital to hospital locally. I wound up going from hospital special surgery. I was at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. We applied to the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, and I wound up in Sloan Kettering in New York. And a guy walked in, and I still deal with him now. His name is Z Chen. And Dr. Chen finally said, out of the blue, he said, after 5 years, he said, I know what's wrong with you. And Sheila and I were just like, wow, you do? And he's like, just hold on. And he put these electrodes on me, and I had this test done with this kind of like, it was shock where each time the shock to your nervous system was a little bit greater. And he was punching in all these numbers, and he finally said to me, you have a very rare disease, very painful one, right? And I said, oh yeah. And he said, it's called CIDP, chronic inflammatory demyelinated polyneuropathy.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And what it is there's a cell, just like cancer works, a cell inside my body that's eating the myelin sheathing off my nerve endings. And since my nerve endings don't have that sheathing to protect them, they're getting the sheathing gets eaten away, they blow up, and you have constant fired nerve pain.
Wow.
So I get infusions every 10 weeks. It hasn't really stopped me. I still I do what I can do. I can handle the pain. I still go to the gym. I still work out, and I'll determine when I go, not the disease.
Thank God. And how long has that now been that you've been battling this?
I've had this disease for 10 years, and it has been quite a challenge. But I feel really lucky. I hear from guys like you. I hear from former players a lot, and it's just like you had mentioned when kids call you coach. And when I hear from all of them, and they show me Facebook, they put pictures of all the county jackets and state championships. And I talk to John Giraldo, and I hear from Kevin George all the time. I saw Eli posted something recently, and I've been to Alvaro's home, and I'm a lucky guy. I got Sheila and Sam, and I still have memories, and I've got former players. And the best thing for me too is I have former kids in classrooms, classes, girls and boys who touch base with me. And I got a girl named Yvette Youngblood into St. John's years ago, and 25 years ago, and she recently touched base with me to tell me how grateful it is that she wound up at St. John's. I had no problem trying to twist people when I had good players to take kids from the school that was just in my classroom and get them into school on time. And kids are grateful for it. I feel good about those things, and when kids say thank you 25 years later, it means a lot to me.
That's really that's what you were in the job for. That's what you want to do, is to be able to have those kids that you touched and remember what you were able to do for them. And they probably don't appreciate it when they're 17 and 18 years old, but now that they're adults, and in some cases, which is hard to believe, in their 40s and approaching 50, it's pretty amazing when you say, wow, like you were able to touch those kids. Like, for instance, a kid like John Giraldo, who's now the head coach at Madawan High School himself. I mean, that shows how much that you had an influence on him, that he became a coach himself. So,
Well, thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
John has turned out to be a really fine young man, and he's got two wonderful kids in this. He works so hard in that program. I went to practice last year and I watched him practice, and he does a good job. He
does an excellent job. He's a great young man, and he's proud to be around somebody like that. There's no question. So, all to sum it all up, Mike. I mean, how to think. How would you ever, in your wildest dreams, ever thought that a kid from Bayonne could have ended up having in my mind, a Hall of Fame career, and end up with a beautiful wife and a daughter, and all because of the sport of basketball? And how incredible is it that you were able to mold a career and mold a life around, and mold a successful life around the sport of basketball?
Yeah, and thank you, Jim. I'm a lucky guy, despite getting sick. I've had a tremendous career. I got really lucky. I started at St. Anthony's, who could start at a better place and work with a more talented coach. From there, I wound up having a great career at Marist, and have so many great young players, and guys like Joe Forenza and Darren Savino, who now is coaching at UCLA, was my assistant coach for a while. And people don't know this, but I got Darren into coaching at a time when St. John's was recruiting James Felton.
Yep.
Before he passed away, and I asked Fran Priscilla back then, and Fran and I are still friends now. I spoke to Fran yesterday, but I asked Fran, I said, you're taking James. Darren wants to be in college coaching. Take Darren too. And he took Darren, and from that point forward, Darren left my program and he went to St. John's. He's worked real hard, and now he's at UCLA.
Right.
On the sidelines, I say, a lot of times people think he's there because of his time at St. Anthony's, but he's really there because he was an assistant at Marist, and I had him moved from Marist to St. John's, and Darren took care of the rest because he's talented at what he's doing. But as far as getting back to me, yeah, I'm lucky, Jim. I really am. All the people I've met, all the great players who made me a decent basketball coach, and then you move on to being married for as long as I have been, and having a great wife and kid. I'm lucky to live in a good town right now, and I'm still on this side of the dirt, but I wouldn't change anything. And I'm grateful for you for giving me the opportunity 25 years later to talk about it.
Beautiful. Well, Mike, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. You're going to definitely bring a lot of attention to the podcast, because a lot of people still will always, whenever I'm around, like in one of the gyms, they always say, whatever happened to Mike Leonardo? And now we can get now I can get to say that he's still around, he's still alive, and he's doing well, and thank God he's doing okay. And we got a chance to talk to you today. So, Mike, thank you so very much for sharing your story with me. And we will definitely, obviously, keep in touch, as we always do. So, thanks again.
Well, thank you, James.
No problem. Good talking to you, and we'll talk soon.
Bye, buddy.
All right. And that was Mike Leonardo, the former Marist High School basketball coach who had a great career at Marist. And we will have another edition of the Hudson County Sports Podcast next week. And just as a special thanks once again to my executive producer, my great nephew Johnny Haig, who helped put this all together. He was without him, there would be no such thing as the Hudson County Sports Podcast. Thanks so very much for listening, and we'll see you again sometime next week. Thank you.